Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And before we get started today, I just want to go ahead and tell everybody I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. I will try to post a video tomorrow if possible. It really just kind of depends on how much news I can actually get. But if you don't hear from me tomorrow, seriously, I hope everybody here has a wonderful holiday and just go out and enjoy time with your family and friends. Nonetheless, we do have some things to talk about today, including a possible return for a big Xbox franchise. This is actually one of my personal favorites, so we are going to go over that one today. And then also, it does look like they're having some success on the PC side of things as well, so we'll go over both of those. To get things started off today, though, we're going to be talking about the franchise for The World Ends With You. And really, this is a game that fans have been wanting a sequel for years and years. That original game released all the way back in 2006 for the Nintendo DS. And after years of fans just begging to get a sequel to this game, Square Enix finally greenlit this game with a sequel in Neo: The World Ends With You. Unfortunately, though, for fans, this game did not meet sales expectations. Square Enix did confirm this back in November. So with that in mind, this is now the second time that The World Ends With You has not really broken any kind of boundaries in terms of units sold. And this does bring up the question about the future of this franchise. Is this franchise going to once again go on a major hiatus where we just don't see it for years and years, if ever at all? And well, actually, the producer did have a response to that, as they did tell this to Nintendo Life. Frankly speaking, nothing has been decided in terms of a next installment. However, as a game based on an actual city, there are still many areas that we still haven't been able to bring to life in the games. So a part of me wants to realize that in some way. If players convey their passion for the game to us, our company may decide to let us make a sequel. And while this is definitely far and away from any kind of confirmation, it is just a small glimmer of hope. At the end of the day, though, I think that there's going to be some questions around this franchise, because it doesn't seem like Square Enix is necessarily thrilled with how many units it's sold, and at the end of the day, they're going to be the one that decides if this game does get another game or not. And really, one of the problems is actually Square Enix themselves. I didn't really see much advertising for this game at all. I don't even think it showed up at E3, which is weird because you would think this would have been one of their premier titles for this year, but they just kind of brushed it under the rug. I guess it is what it is, but for fans of this franchise, I really do feel for you. Next up, we do actually get to talk about the possible return for Klanoa once again. What originally started as speculation is quickly turning into more of a reality the more we hear about this game. So basically what's happening is that back in 2019, Bandai Namco filed for some trademarks that looked suspiciously like a new Klanoa game. It was being subtitled Encore 1 and 2, which makes this look like it's going to be some kind of remaster or remake. But since 2019, things have gone a little quiet until here recently. Now, over the last year, a Klanoa Encore trademark popped up over in Japan, and then more recently, a Klanoa Fantasy Reverie series was registered over in the UK. And this is something that we talked about last week, but things have continued even further than that, because now we've gotten trademarks filed in Canada on December 17th, and then over in Europe, Klanoa Fantasy Reverie series was trademarked on December 20th. So yeah, by this point, there's a lot of different trademarks popping up for Klanoa Fantasy Reverie series, which I think that this does essentially confirm that something is happening with this franchise. There's just too many trademarks being filed surrounding this game by this point to just simply ignore it. So I do think that Klanoa is returning, and it looks like it's probably going to be a remake or a remaster of the first two games. And really, I'm absolutely all for that. As I've said prior to this video, Klanoa might not necessarily be as well known as something like Mario, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, or Banjo-Kazooie, but Klanoa still does have a dedicated fan base, and not only do I think that it will translate well into modern games, especially with its great overall design, but I think that it could also bring in a lot of new fans as well. So by all means, let's bring back Klanoa. Let's go ahead and talk about Xbox though, and I'm actually quite excited about this specific topic. And that's because this one's going to be about Killer Instinct. Now, a lot of you all that's been following this channel for a long time probably knows I'm a pretty big fan of Killer Instinct, and actually, it's one of my favorite games, specifically the one on the Xbox One, is one of my favorite games of all time. I truly, legitimately believe that that is one of the greatest fighting games ever made, and unfortunately, it just launched for the wrong console at the wrong time, so it unfortunately kind of was overlooked by a lot of the fighting game community. Nonetheless, though, the fans that did play Killer Instinct last generation, they know just how good this game is, they know how special it is, and a lot of people want this franchise to return. And now, a lot of this is going to be speculation, but it does seem like Xbox might be doing something with this franchise, or maybe just a fighting game in general, but I mean, we have been hearing about Killer Instinct a little bit over the last year. See, we actually talked about this just a few months ago because the insider Nick Baker over on the Xbox Era podcast did state that not only is Microsoft bringing back Killer Instinct, but it's actually in active development. Now, he did say that he's not exactly sure who's working on this Killer Instinct game, but he's pretty sure it's not Iron Galaxy, which worked on Season 2 and Season 3 for Killer Instinct last generation. Of course, though, all of this is just currently rumors. There's no official confirmation or no sign that Microsoft is actually working on said game. But interestingly enough, a few job hires over at Xbox Game Publishing did pop up online, which kind of stands out. Yeah, so apparently they brought on 2 key roles that actually worked on Mortal Kombat over at NetherRealm Studios, and they've now joined Xbox Game Publishing as the executive producer and technical director, which is actually at the same team as Adam Iskreen, which had a major hand in Killer Instinct. Now, that is incredibly interesting and noteworthy amidst the rumors that Killer Instinct is in active development. Of course, like I said before, this is all kind of just speculation by this point. There's no confirmation, but it is really interesting to see this happen, and it does kind of further give evidence that maybe they are possibly doing something with the Killer Instinct franchise. Now, this could be for something completely different. I mean, this could be a different fighting game, but I just find it interesting that all of this is happening at the same time that there's been leaks for a Killer Instinct game. I mean, I guess we'll kind of see what happens with all of this, but the big question still remains. If Killer Instinct is indeed in active development, who exactly is working on it? It doesn't sound like it's going to be Iron Galaxy, and more than likely it's not going to be NetherRealm Studios either. But what we do know is that it seems like Xbox Game Studios Publishing is adding fighting game experience, and this is their studio that works with third-party developers to work on first-party games. So maybe they have found a partner once again. Now, at the same time, and I have said this in the past, but I have to wonder if maybe they could also be building their own Killer Instinct studio. This is something that I have said several times in the past that I believe that they really should do, because I think Killer Instinct should be a pillar to Xbox. This is a proven franchise, and I think that they can expand so much on Killer Instinct. With the last season of Killer Instinct, they started adding some different Xbox mascots in, such as Rash from Battletoads. They brought in Arbiter from Halo. They brought in Ram from Gears of War, and they could do a lot more of that with Killer Instinct going forward. And we do already know that they have an internal KI team. This has been well known for years and years, but they don't really have a studio for it either. So maybe here with the addition of some Mortal Kombat talent from NetherRealm Studios, maybe they might actually be building a studio after all. Again, just speculation for the time being, but let me know in the comments below, would you like to see Killer Instinct return this generation, and do you think that they should build a studio to make it happen, or should they sign a third-party studio to make it instead? Let me know in the comments below. Now, we do also have an Xbox PC game to talk about today, and this one is really interesting because Sea of Thieves has now sold 5 million copies over on Steam. It's also reached 25 million players, which is just absolutely ridiculous, but it is very noteworthy to see Sea of Thieves sell 5 million units on Steam specifically. And the reason this is so noteworthy is because Sea of Thieves actually launched on the Xbox One back in 2018. Interestingly enough, it didn't actually come over to Steam until 2020. And even then, it still sold 5 million copies. You also have to take into consideration that Sea of Thieves is available on Xbox Game Pass. It's on PC Game Pass as well, and despite all that, it has still went on to sell 5 million units. It just kind of shows you that Steam fan base, it is very large, and it matters what storefront you release these games on PC as well. It has been interesting to see Xbox be successful on PC though, specifically with Steam, despite having their own console, despite having their own storefront on PC. I think it just kind of further proves that Xbox absolutely made the correct decision in bringing their games over to PC. See, when Xbox first decided to bring their games over to PC, they were heavily ridiculed that was happening. And you kind of still see a little bit of that today. You know, some people be like, oh, well, I don't have to play on Xbox, I'll just play it on PC. But that's kind of the point. You know, they want you to play their games. Whether you play it on PC, Xbox, your phones, or wherever, it doesn't really matter as long as you play their games. This is the exact same reason that you're starting to see Sony bring their games over to PC as well. They're bringing over games like God of War, they're bringing Uncharted, they released Death Stranding on PC, Horizon Zero Dawn, and among several others. So you are starting to see both Xbox and PlayStation bring their games on PC, and this right here is the exact reason. There's a large community here that does not play on Xbox, or maybe they don't play on PlayStation, and that's why bringing these games over to PC is such a smart move. Something else that I think that we're starting to notice too is that it's not really affecting console sales either. I'm absolutely positive that there's going to be some overlap between the PC fan base and the console fan base, but there's a lot of fans that just want to play on PC, or there's just a lot of fans that just want to play on consoles, and we are very much seeing that. The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series have been insanely successful this generation. And that's despite some of their games heading over to PC. Now, I guess to be fair, PlayStation hasn't really put any of their PlayStation 5 games on PC just yet, but I think by this point, we're really starting to see that there's some major benefits of bringing your games over to the Steam platform. It's just, to me, I think that there's certain people out there that kind of focuses a little bit too much on the console wars, but this really is a good thing for Microsoft. It's a good thing for Sony as well. When these games make more money over on the Steam platform, they can then get more money to make better games in the future for the Xbox or for the PlayStation 5. So always keep that in mind. In order to make these big high budget games, they also have to make money, and this is a good way for them to make money. Either way though, big congrats to both Rare and Xbox with all their success on Sea of Thieves. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and you all really surprised me on this one because I did ask you all, what is the best first-party PlayStation game that released in 2021? Now, I thought I knew what was going to win here, and it surprisingly didn't, because if you take a look here, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut took first place with 44% of the votes. I really thought that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was going to be the winner here, as this is a brand new game for the PlayStation 5, but instead it actually took second place with 34% of the votes. Then third place was Returnal at 13%. Then fourth place was Destruction All-Stars at 5%. And then Death Stranding Director's Cut at 3%. Yeah, now a few of these polls in the past have surprised me, but I think this has been the biggest surprise for me so far, because Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is more or less a remaster with some extra bonus content. Little surprised that one beat out Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, but nonetheless, I mean, Ghost of Tsushima, it's an excellent game. A lot of people thought it should have won Game of the Year last year, so I do know this is a really popular game, and it's also a really good game at that. So I do understand why a lot of you all would vote for this, because like I said, Ghost of Tsushima is just a really good game, and it's also an absolutely gorgeous looking game as well. Truthfully, even though this game was originally developed for the PlayStation 4, I still believe it's actually one of the best looking games visually on the market right now. That just kind of goes to show you the talent that they have over at Sucker Punch and just how good they made this game actually look. Still though, for me personally, I'm going to have to go with the new release being Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I really enjoyed that game a lot. It looks extraordinary. I think it's a lot of fun, and it has an overall enjoyable story as well. So for myself, I'm going to have to go with the new release being Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.